tonight, what we're going to do is very different than something we've ever done here before. And what I want to do, and I ask you guys would just support me in this, is I seriously just want to read Scripture. And that's been on my heart. I don't really know why, but I know that God's put it there. And so tonight we are literally going to read a few pages of Scripture. I'm just going to read it to you. And the reason we're doing that is because Joseph's story is fantastic. And I have done injustice by doing it in 3 weeks. It is actually a crime, and I'm surprised I haven't been struck down by lightning yet. I mean, this story is so good in so many ways, and it challenges us in so many ways. So what I want to do tonight is just read through the last part of it together, and then we'll talk, and I do have a few points. But that's what I want to do. Is that okay? Can I just get like a head or a hand clap? That's better. I want to know that y'all are with me, and I know this is different, and I'm going to talk as we go through it, but just hang on. So if you have a Bible, open up to Genesis 39. We're going to start in verse 19, and we're going to go following. If you don't have a Bible, you can look on the big one behind me, or even better, maybe scooch next to someone that does. It's a great way to pick up a date. Just throwing it out there. Ladies, if he doesn't have a Bible, scoot away, because I'm just kidding. Chapter 39, and let me, real quick, I'll catch you up. If you weren't here last week, we talked about sexual temptation, so you missed a talk all about sex, which is always fun and awkward to talk about, but we talked about sexual temptation, and in that story, Joseph, he had been put under the house of Potiphar, and he was working hard, he was serving the Lord was blessing him, he was blessing the house, and then Potiphar had a wife, and Potiphar's wife looked at Joseph. We realized that he was very handsome, a lot like me if you want a modern day picture, and she lusted after him, and she, just kidding, but so she lusted after him. She got a little caught up in her little sexual world, and so she tried to pursue him, and he literally fled out the door, but left a piece of clothing behind. And so to pick up our story, she's decided to catch herself from getting in trouble. She's going to pull this piece of clothing out, she's going to take it to her husband, and she's going to tell him how evil this man Joseph is and what injustice he's doing in their house. So let's pick up there. Verse 19, just follow along with me, and I promise this is going to bless us. Verse 19, after hearing his wife's story, Potiphar was furious. He took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held. But the Lord was with Joseph there too, and he granted Joseph favor with the chief jailer. Second time in Scripture, we've heard Joseph had favor with the Lord. Verse 22, before long, the jailer put Joseph in charge of all of the other prisoners and everything that happened in the prison. The chief jailer had no more worries after that because Joseph took care of everything, the Lord was with him, making everything run smoothly and successfully. Chapter 40, verse 1. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker, and I want to pause there for a second. A cupbearer, I don't know what a cupbearer is. Just raise your hand. Okay, cool, a couple of us. All right, so here's how this works. It doesn't happen now, but this is how it worked back then. Back then, poisoning someone was a logical way to kill someone. It's changed now, but back then that's how they did it. And so kings had cupbearers, and the cupbearer's job was simply to take the drink that the king was going to drink, and they'd take a sip of it. And if they lived, then the king would drink. And if they died, the king would know that it was poison, and so he'd move on to the next one. So that's what a cupbearer was. We don't have those now, but maybe one day that'll come back, hopefully not. So sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended him. Pharaoh became very angry with these officials, and he put them in the prison where Joseph was in the palace of Potiphar, the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and Potiphar assigned Joseph to take care of them. One night, the cupbearer and the baker each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. The next morning, Joseph noticed their dejected faces, the dejected look on their faces. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but there is no one here to tell us what they mean." Joseph's response, "Interpreting dreams is God's business. Tell me what you saw." Verse 9, the cupbearer told his dream. And I'm going to skip this just for time's sake. But he told him his dream. But at the end, as Joseph is listening to the dream, he decides he's with the Lord's vision. He is able to interpret the dream. But as he interprets it, he ends with this statement. This is very important. "Mention me to Pharaoh, and ask him to let me out of here. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in jail, but I did nothing to deserve it. Now verse 16, when the chief baker saw that the first dream had such a good meaning, he told his dream to Joseph. And then in my dream, he said, there were 3 baskets of pastries on my head, and the top basket were all kinds of bakery goods for the Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them. I'll tell you what it means, Joseph told him. The 3 baskets mean 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will cut off your head and will impale your body on a pole. Then birds will come and peck away at your flesh. Very gruesome, I know. Verse 20, Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he gave a banquet for all his officials and household staff. He sent for his chief cupbearer and his chief baker, and they were brought to him from the prison. He then restored, check this out, he then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position, but he sentenced the chief baker to be impaled on a pole just as Joseph had predicted. Pharaoh's cupbearer, however, promptly forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Man. So he interpreted his dream just as it was said. He said, I would come back and get you. But he left him. He forgot about him. 2 years later, okay? Not a day later, not a month later. 2 years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, 7 fat, healthy-looking cows suddenly came up out of the river and began grazing along its bank. Then 7 other cows came up from the river, but these were very ugly and gaunt. The cows went over and stood beside the fat cow. Then the thin, ugly cows ate the fat ones. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. Soon, he fell asleep again and had a second dream. This time, he saw 7 heads of grain on one stalk, with every kernel well-formed and plump. Then suddenly, 7 more heads appeared on the stalk. Hang on. But these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream. Here's where Joseph comes back in the picture. The next morning, as he thought about it, Pharaoh became very concerned as to what the dreams might mean. So he called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt, and he told them to tell him what his dream meant. Then, after no one could do so, the king's cupbearer spoke up. Today, I have been reminded of my failure, he said. Some time ago, you were angry with me and the chief baker. Then you imprisoned us in the place of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I had a dream. See how this is all coming together? We had a dream. Each had its own meaning. We told the dreams to a young Hebrew man who was a servant of the captain of the guard. He told us what each of our dreams meant, and everything happened just as he said it would. I was restored to my position as cupbearer and chief baker, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once. He was brought hastily from the dungeon. After a quick shave and change of clothes, he went in and stood in Pharaoh's presence. I had a dream last night, Pharaoh told him, and none of these men can tell me what it means. But I have heard that you can interpret dreams. That is why I have called for you. Joseph's response, almost done. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied. But God will tell you what it means, and I will set you at ease. All right, now I'm going to skip the dream, read the last part, and then we're done of the reading segment. Verse 25. Both dreams, this is Joseph's response, both dreams mean the same thing, Joseph told Pharaoh. God was telling you what he is about to do. The 7 fat cows and the 7 plump heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, ugly cows and the 7 withered heads of grain represent every year, the 7 years of famine, This will happen just as I have described it, for God has shown you what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterward there will be 7 years of famine, so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten and wiped out. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so terrible that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having the dream twice, it means that this matter has been decreed by God and that he will make this event happen soon. Now here's where it gets crazy. Okay, Joseph has just interpreted this dream to the king. The king, okay? It's not like nowadays with the president. This is the king. They killed people for no reason and no one said a thing. There were no limitations. There were no holds on them. Joseph interprets this dream, and it's pretty raw. You're going to have 7 years of prosperity, then you're going to have 7 years of famine. Okay, he's speaking truth to him, but that's raw to tell the king that you're about to endure 7 years of hardship. But then look at the courage that Joseph has. After interpreting that dream, there's no pause, there's no, king, can I share something with you? He goes immediately in to say, verse 33, my suggestion. Wait a minute. You told me your dream, and now you have a suggestion? I'm the king. I am in charge. I'm in control. What I say goes, but you have a suggestion for me. Joseph says, my suggestion is that you find the wisest man in Egypt and put him in charge of a nationwide program. Let Pharaoh appoint officials over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food and grain of these good years into the royal storehouses and store it away so there will be food in the cities. That way, there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come. Otherwise, disaster will surely strike the land, and all the people will die. Verse 37, Joseph's suggestions were all received by the Pharaoh and his advisors as they discussed who should be appointed for the job. This is where we stop. The last 2 weeks after our messages, we've played the song Beautiful Things by Gungor, okay? And this is where, if we could just mentally insert that song, okay? Thinking about the words. God makes beautiful things out of nothing. God makes beautiful things out of dust. God does not make mistakes. Then you see this. Pharaoh said, who could do it better than Joseph, the guy that was just in prison? Who could do it better than Joseph? For he is a man who is obviously filled with the Spirit of God. Turning to Joseph, Pharaoh said, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, you are the wisest man in the land. I hereby appoint you to direct this project. You will manage my household, organize all my people. Only I will have a rank higher than yours. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh placed his own signet ring on Joseph's finger as a symbol of his authority. He dressed him in beautiful clothing and placed him in the royal gold chain around his neck. Pharaoh also gave Joseph the chariot of his second in command, and wherever, listen to this, wherever he went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Joseph was put in charge of all Egypt, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am the king, but no one will move a hand or a foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. It's a lot of scripture. That's a long story. It's a long story. Let me tell you something. Joseph hit every downfall you could possibly have. And in those moments, he had to have been thinking, God has made a mistake. Right? Tonight, I only have 3 things to say to you. Just 3, that's it. No, it's a miracle. The first thing is this. God does not make trash. God does not make trash. When I graduated from high school, I was a loser in every way you could describe one. I barely made it out of high school. I was going to community college, which that does not make you a loser. But I was going to community college while all of my friends were going away to these big schools. I had a drinking problem. I drank way more than I studied. It was terrible. I went through my first year of school, 2 semesters, full loads, and I walked away with 2 credits. Do the math. That's terrible. I lived at home with my parents, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I did nothing that my parents said. They asked me to do chores, and I would find an excuse to get around it. I was an absolute, complete, without a doubt, loser. And I remember in those times thinking, not only did God make a mistake, but I would say that I'm as close to trash as you could possibly get. And that's just being honest. That's how I felt. I really felt like God had forgot about me. God made a mistake. God made me, and he messed up. I used to, when I grew up, some of y'all can relate to this, I had the worst acne on the face of the planet. Like the worst, okay? Take the worst person and make it worse. That was me. Like I used to think as God was making the people, I used to always kind of think God had like this little assembly line and he'd put people together and he'd hit buttons when you need blonde hair, boop, blue eyes, athleticism, and so I used to think, man, he gave me everything, but some reason he accidentally hit the acne button. And I could never figure out why. I couldn't, and I promise you, and if you've had it, you understand, like it's a tremendous deal. And I remember, like in football practice, I'd look around and be like, dude, I sweat and I break out. These guys are covered in sweat and they have like commercial clear skin. I don't get it. I really don't understand. And then I remember, I told God, I made a deal. I said that if you would just take my acne away for one day, okay, if I could, and this is just being honest, if I could pick up the hottest girl, I would prove to you that you messed up. Okay? And so that was our deal. It never worked. But I remember just all through school, I hated that I had acne. I hated that I grew up in a single parent home. I hated that I had to work extra hard in school because I wasn't like my brother and just could wake up and be smart. I hated it. And I remember thinking God made a mistake. God doesn't make trash. He absolutely does not make trash. Second thing I want to say to you guys tonight. God doesn't waste time. God doesn't waste time. Now, many of us were sitting here going, okay, I'm going to debate you on that one because there's some time being wasted in my life right now. There was some time in my life that I thought was being wasted. I remember my senior year playing football, and I've shared the story, so I'll roughly go through it. But I was playing football, and I ran down the football field. Some dude hit me, and I split my knee in two. And I remember laying on the field thinking like my life, you're like this, looking up in the sky. My life is over. Like there is no pain worse than that. You cry. I cried in public. Right? Guys don't do that. I know girls is a different story, but guys don't do that. And I bawled in front of thousands of people in a football stadium. I mean, it was terrible. And I remember through the recovery period just going, okay, dude, you messed up. Seriously. Like things were going well. I was going to be an all-star, all-American, NFL, NBA athlete. You'll never know, so I can say whatever I want. And I remember just like, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then I healed and I recovered and things were going well and things came. And then I did it again to the other knee, playing basketball. And I remember just like, ugh. If I could walk, I'd be doing so many cool things right now. And some of us, we look at our life and we go, man, like, oh, there's just a dead space in my life. There's nothing going on. This is a joke. Let me tell you something. When you feel, and I did in those moments, when you feel that God is the furthest, those are oftentimes the moments that God is the closest. That God is the closest. So many of you guys, let me just tell you, I'm going to put this in an example for you. So many of us, we live our lives, and it looks like this, okay? We take these plans, and we put them in our hand, and then we get all excited about them. Let's just say, for instance, I want to be a dancer, okay? I want to dance for the ballet or whatever. I don't know what y'all dance for. But I want to dance for, let's just say the Houston Ballet. Is that big? Is Houston Ballet a big deal? That's a big deal? Okay, yeah, right on. All right, so I want to dance for the Houston Ballet. Guys, I know it's not you girls. All right, but so you get this dream, and you get so excited about it. You are so fired up. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to dance until my toes bleed. I'm going to eat no food. I'm going to do anything to make this dream come true. And so we'll forget friends, we'll be rude to people, like we'll do anything to get to that dream. But see, the problem is sometimes our dreams are not the plans that God had in store for us. And so you think, cool, no problem. God's just going to change it out, right? No. See, what he has to do is he has to come in and he has to pry back all the things that you've invested. Am I doing this to Tim? Okay, sorry. Just y'all just going to have to deal with it tonight, okay? And so God has to come in and he has to pry back all these different things because we wanted it so bad. But the problem was this isn't what he wanted. And so many of us do that. I did it. I knew that I was going to be in the NFL. I mean, I don't know how, the first white guy ever. I was going to be in the NFL, and I held on to it so hard. And God had to literally break my knee twice, make me halfway flunk out of school, make everything in my life go wrong, so then he could finally get to the plan that I thought I wanted. He could pull it out, and he could switch it in for what he wanted. And let me tell you something, his plan, it's always better. And so some of you tonight, if I could just give you any advice, it would be this. Look at Joseph's life. What did he do? He never held on to anything. You never heard him cry out or curse God. Never. Why? Because he trusted that God had the best thing in store. Some of you, it's okay to make plans. It's okay to have goals and dreams. It's okay to say, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go to law school, and then I'm going to get a big job. Or I'm going to go to grad school, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the military, and then I'm going to do this. It's okay to have dreams and goals and plans. But don't live your life in a way that you're so wrapped up to it that God can't come in and make it better. If I had done that, can I tell you something? I wouldn't be standing here in front of y'all tonight. Isn't that crazy? If he hadn't finally pried away all the different things that I was holding on to, I wouldn't be here tonight. So some of you, if you hear nothing else, just hear that we live our life like this. That God could come in and change it and make it better whenever he wants. But we don't hold him off by trying to pry him away. All right? Last thing I want to say to you guys tonight is God is faithful. God is faithful. He is faithful. And I don't have time to read it, but the rest of Joseph talks about how his brothers finally come back to find him. Joseph in charge of everything. Remember that time of famine, that time of feast? They store all the food for 7 years, and Joseph's brothers and his family are starving, and so they have to go back to get the food. And standing in front of them, the one that's going to give it to them is Joseph. And this is a fast forward to the story, but they literally bow down, just like Joseph's dream said at the beginning of our series. They bow down to Joseph because Joseph has been put in charge of everything. God is faithful. He is faithful. And so many of us, we look at our life now and we go, what is he doing? I don't quite get it. It doesn't make sense. I don't know where I'm going. Trust me, he's going to get you exactly where he needs you to go. He doesn't waste time. We do. We do. By our own selfish desires, by our own sin, all these crazy things, we're the one that wastes time. He is faithful. And I'll tell you one more story. When my first year of Beach Retreat, for those of y'all that are coming, if you have no idea what Beach Retreat is, just hang in for this. But my first year at Beach Retreat, I wasn't on staff yet. I was just another guy sitting in a chair just like you guys, but I had been invited to teach a small Bible study class. And so I got invited to go to Beach, did that green just like, sorry. So I got invited to go and to be a part of Beach Retreat, like many of y'all for the first, how many first-time Beach Retreaters do we have? Okay, a couple of y'all, all right. So I went, and I'm a counselor, and a counselor is a scary thing if you don't know what you're doing. And so I roll in, and I meet my kids. It's a group of guys. They're really cool until we got there. And then we walk in the condo, and I'm thinking, I'm scared out of my mind. So I'm looking around. There's glass everywhere. There's things that could break in any moment. And I'm freaking out. And these guys they come in, and they run straight into a room and close the door. And I go, praise God, thank you. They're in there praying. They are meditating on the word. I'm going to be counselor of the year. Like, this is awesome. And no joke, 1 minute later, all 6 of them come running out in nothing but their underwear. And they're just running all over the place. I mean, rolling in my bed. I mean, all over the place. And I went from, man, this is going to be the awesome, most best week of my life, to this is going to be terrible. Now, fast forward a couple days. These guys, they settled down a little bit, but there came a night about 3 nights into the trip, and it was late. I was already in bed, And I heard some commotion, but you'll learn, guys, and you hear, just let it go, because it ain't worth getting up every time. But finally, I heard a bang on my door, and it was pretty loud. Crud, okay. So I go to the door. Man, what? I said it with love, of course. What? What do you want? They go, dude, like this guy and this guy, they're having a fist fight right now. You got to come. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I run out there, and they're duking it out in the bedroom. I don't even know how. I don't even know. Don't worry about it. But so I break them up, and I send one to the living room, one to the bedroom, and I just go back to my room. So, man, I'm done. They're going to stay separated. I'm not worried about this. And I remember standing in the doorway. You have a little arch. I'm just standing with my head on I know that I should go help them or talk to them or something, but I just want to go right there to my bed. I just want to lay down. I just want to sleep. I want to forget about it, pretend that it never happened. And so the Lord moved in a mysterious way and made me go. And so I said, okay. And so I walk out there, and I go into the bedroom first, and I talk to this kid. I'm like, what happened? Why'd you do this? Stop being an idiot. Oh, I don't get it. He's like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, you just talk to him, and everything will be fine. I said, okay, cool. That was easy. The second one's going to be fine, right? I walk into the living room. It's dark. I can't see his face. He's sitting on the couch, and he's like, excuses, right? All these excuses. Oh, my gosh, he did this, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, he just stops. I'm like, okay, what's going on? All of a sudden, you know when someone's about to cry. You just feel it. You feel it in your heart. You know it's coming. And so I'm looking at this guy like, dude, you just got in a fist fight. Why are you crying? I don't understand. And that's what I'm thinking in my head. I didn't say this. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and all of a sudden, he starts talking. He starts talking about his life. He starts talking about he was struggling with depression, and he's been forced to take all these pills, and it was just driving him crazy because he really didn't want them, but he kind of knew that he needed them. And he started talking about his parents, he started talking about his mom and their relationship and how things have just been crazy. And I remember just like, young, not on staff, no church back. What do I do? Like, do I leave? Do I sit? I don't know. And so I stood up. I was kind of leaning on a chair. I just stood up, and I just reached my arms out. I had no idea. I just reached my arms out. They're probably not even supposed to do this. I don't know, but it's youth camp. But I just reached my arms out, and this little guy, he stood up, and he just bear hugged me. I mean, he just grabbed on, and he was literally holding my shirt. And so I kind of did, guys, I don't know what to do. So I did. But I just told myself, man, I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to get another shot at this. And so I just grabbed him. And we just stood there. And I remember just in my head, I'm 21 at the time. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. It was that stage where I'm transitioning in. But I remember just holding this guy and going, honestly, there's nowhere else that I would rather be. Like, I'm 21. I should be at the bar drinking and experiencing but I'm standing here with this kid in my arms, and he's crying, and I'm thinking there's nowhere else in the world that I would rather be. Who does that? Only God. Only God could make me want to be there more than anywhere else that the world tells me that I should be. Only God. And I wish I could tell you that it was a miraculous change, and it wasn't. We cried together, and then that's it. But you know what I realized? It was in that moment that I realized that God was calling me to so much more than what I was doing. To so much more than what I was doing. So my prayer tonight, we read a story, and I shared with you 3 points. This is my prayer tonight, that as you go into the summer, as you go into beach retreat, as you go into internships, as you go into all the different things that you're going to do, that you would just step back and say, God, I have no idea what you want me to do, but I know that you have something huge in store for me. You may not go into ministry, and that's okay. You may go back to school at the end of the summer, but this summer you can experience something that most people around the world are looking for, and they'll go different places to find it, but they won't. Because what they're looking for is God, and they just don't realize it. Some of you this week, you're going to get a chance to love on a kid like I did. And if you had told me before I went that week that that's what I would love doing the most at Beach Retreat, I would have laughed at you. And it would have been a joke. But it's in those moments that God brings out the real us. And it's in those moments that God shows us how real he is and how needed in this world he is. Some of you tonight, this whole God thing, it's new. Maybe it's the first time you've even been to church before. You're like, dude, you are crazy. You were hugging a dude and crying. I get that. But all I can say is this. You have nothing to lose to take one summer to give God a chance. You have nothing to lose. And some of you are interns, some of you are pastors, some of you are worship guys, and you're going to go do this thing this summer. And my prayer for you is that you don't forget why we're doing this. That you don't rely on your own strength. What did Joseph say? I can't interpret your dream. I can't do anything, but he can. All these camps, all these internships, they could be a joke if you don't put him at the center of what we do. Lights, cameras, speaking, pastors, we're all a joke. He is the only thing that's real. And I pray that we would get that tonight. God takes anything. He takes nothing and he turns it into something. He does not make trash. He does not waste time. He's faithful. He's just. He makes beautiful things. And that is what we as believers need to hold on to. And that's what I pray you hold on to tonight.